So what I wanted to talk about today is the dangers of reminiscing and how it can really be a hole that we fall into. And reminiscing can also be interchanged with nostalgia. And it's basically looking back on the past in a kind of longing way. Like you really long for a certain time period. Maybe it was a certain experience that you had, a time with a certain person, something that you were involved with, or just even wishing for a simpler time when maybe you didn't have so many responsibilities or so many things to think about. And the reason I've been thinking about this recently is because some of my friends and I have realized that whenever we're hanging out, we're kind of always thinking about the past. And we're always looking back on it with such a fond outlook on it. And we're missing it, right? And reflecting on the past is not inherently a bad thing, because you can learn things from past situations you were in. You can pick up on things that you didn't really realize before, and you can understand better how to move forward in life. But at the same time, if you're always reminiscing or you're always having nostalgia for a certain time period in life, then you're never actually going to be able to live in that moment and have that moment as something to look back on. And I think it's kind of tricky because there can be certain situations or a certain community that you're put into that really give you the opportunity to have things to really look back on and great memories to make. And so maybe the life that you're in currently or the group that you're put into is not a group that's kind of helping you have those things to look back on in the future. You're not making like core memories. And this is what I've kind of realized is that once you're in college, I mean, it kind of depends on which college you go to, but certain colleges, people are just there to pretty much like get their school done and head out and not really make friends. And so, yes, there's other experiences, like there might be parties or there might be a get together after the football game. But if you're not really into that, or you're not that type of person to be going out and doing things that people do at parties, then it is tricky for you to have those kinds of core memories that are easier to be created before college. Because it depends on what high school you go to, but either if you're involved in high school sports or, in your classes you see certain people every day, whereas with most college classes you have them like twice a week, and you don't really get to hear about people's lives anymore. And that's what I've realized that you kind of miss out on, is that you don't get to hear about things that are going on with people. You don't get to hear about how, the quarterback on the football team, how the game went. You don't get to hear about how the team did at golf. You don't get to hear about those small things anymore, those people's lives. And a lot of people are more introverted and drawn into themselves. And same with the professors. You don't really get to hear about them, whereas, like I said, it depends on which high school you went to. But at least for me, like, people would ask the teachers about their life or what's been going on, and the teachers would talk to us. Maybe they got a new pet, or a teacher's engaged or something, or they've really been enjoying this new book that they've been reading. Like, professors in college don't go out of their way to create situations where they're having those conversations with students. And it's up to us also to create those situations. Like the other day, I was in my math class and my teacher was talking about how he didn't start investing until a lot later in life. And so I just kind of started talking to him about that and asked him when that was and how that started. And he went on and he told me a whole story about how he got really lucky with the condo that he ended up buying, and it was all because of this dog that he had that wouldn't be allowed in normal apartments. And so within college, and if you're kind of that college age, it's very easy to stay within that surface level and kind of just be there just for your classes and move along with your life, especially if you're not into going to like sporting events or going to parties or other stuff. And so what I think can be a beneficial thing to reminiscing is thinking about those people that really impacted you, or maybe it's someone you liked a long time ago, and it's like, what did I like about that person? What made this a moment that I really wanted to remember? What is it about this time period in my life to where now, years later, I'm still looking back on it? I'm still thinking about this organization I was involved in. I'm still thinking about this person that I liked romantically. I'm still thinking about this friend group. What is it about those things that I look back so fondly on? And how can I create something like that now? Because we have to take charge of it. And so that's kind of like what I was doing in my class the other day. I was like, I don't personally know this teacher a lot, but teachers have exciting things to talk to you about. Some of them will. And they're kind of just waiting for people to ask them, And there was like 3 other students who stuck around listening to him talk to us about this, only because I asked that question. And this was at the end of class. So I'm not just saying like, do it whenever. But yeah, so that would have never been a story that we would have heard if I probably hadn't asked that. And we probably just would have left class. Like, we stuck around for like 3 more minutes and he just told that story. But like, that's something it's not a huge moment, right? But it's something that a couple years down the line, you might remember, oh, my math teacher told me this story about how he actually got really lucky buying this condominium and then saving his money all because of this dog and whatever. Like, you're gonna remember things like that. And so we have to be on the quest for those moments, I guess, every day, and be looking at these things like, what are core memories I can make? Now, why reminiscing can be bad, like I stated earlier, is that you aren't actually thinking about how you can make the present moment something that you will think about later on down the line, something that you will look back on and really enjoy as a memory in your mind. But the other thing is that your mind will kind of fade away the bad parts of that time period of your life, or of that certain person, or the organization you're involved in, whether it was sports or whatever. And so it's not totally accurate on what you're looking back on. So when I think back to, I think it was my sophomore year of high school, there's a lot of core memories that I kind of have. And just scrolling through my camera roll, like, I'll see a bunch of things. I'm like, oh, I remember that. That was so much fun. Or that was like a really fun thing to go and do with people. But at the same time, sophomore year was also one of the hardest years of my life, and just for a multitude of reasons. So when I'm reminiscing or thinking back or looking at pictures, like, not the full story isn't coming to me. Like, I'm not remembering how it really was in that moment, and how either, you might be thinking about the past, but it's like, oh, you're not remembering totally these fallouts with friends, or how this one class was really tricky and you weren't like doing that great in it. Like, all those things are kind of pushed to the side in your memory, and you're looking back with basically rose-colored glasses. So reminiscing can be not totally accurate, and you might not be getting the full picture. And so it's important to remember that and realize that even if life right now is not the complete best, you're still gonna think about it in the future. Because in the past, those moments that weren't the complete best, well, now you're thinking about them and you're only remembering the best things and the things that really stood out to you. And so I guess it's a way to also understand that the good moments are going to be what sticks with you. So maybe that can help you if you're going through like a tougher time right now, and just realizing that the good things are going to stick with you. And maybe you don't have a lot of good things right now, but like I said, try and create those opportunities for good things to happen. It might be saying yes to something that you normally say no to, or hanging out with a new friend group if they invite you somewhere. Whether that's they invite you to like a sporting event, or They want to watch a movie at someone's house or just grabbing food, going bowling. If you normally say no to those things, then there's going to be nothing to look back on. And so I encourage you to think about how you can make these moments to look back on. Reminiscing is such an interesting thing in nostalgia because it can get triggered by almost anything. Like, you might be drinking a certain drink. Like, sometimes when I have like a certain energy drink, I'm like, I remember like when I first had this, or I know it sounds silly, or I remember when I was first listening to this song. Like, I'll get flashbacks to when I was listening to a certain song freshman year, like on the school bus. Like, I remember that, right? Early in the morning, because I had practice for sports. And like, I'll remember that. And so part of it is trying to associate certain things with time periods of your life. So that's just my encouragement for you, is to be wary of reminiscing, because it can be kind of a path you just always fall into, into thinking about better days, when in reality, there were moments in that time period of your life that were not so great. You just kind of barely remember them. To also think about that, what can I do now to make this something that I will look back on in the future and be really grateful for, that I had this experience, that I met this person, that I said yes to this event, or decided to try something new. What are the small conversations I can have with people that are going to come to my mind 3 years later, when I've left this school, when I've left this job, when I've moved from this city? Who are the people, who are the names that I'm going to remember? What memories are going to come to my brain? What am I going to be thinking of? What small conversations are going to stick with me? And I think that's what can be really cool, is like, you cannot speak to someone in 3 years, not because like anything necessarily bad happened. It might be a friend, it might be someone you used to like, and you're just kind of going separate ways, but yet things still remind you of that person. Or you still see someone and you're like, they kind of look like that person. I wonder how they're doing right now. And I think there's something kind of beautiful about that. So those are basically my final thoughts. Just keep in mind that you're looking back on the past with rose-colored glasses. You're not remembering the full picture. Be careful that reminiscing doesn't keep you from the present moment. And also think about what you can do to make the present moment something that you will look back on and be grateful for and be happy about.